Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens keep mistaking regular people as employees, and they won't back down for some reason. And in this episode, guys, Karens are getting embarrassed left and right. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. So here's a bit of backstory. I was 28 at the time of the story. Me and my mother live together because I take care of her when I'm not working, as she's disabled and she walks with a cane with difficulty. On this day, me and my mom went to the Mart of Walls, and I was wearing a red shirt that says, "Do me a favor and stop talking" on it. My mother looked to the area for the motor carts and she saw that there were none, so we tried to troop on with just a cart. I could see she was hurting as we walked, and I knew she couldn't make it all the way through our shopping on foot. That's when I say, "Mom, stop. I'll go see if a cart got put back." My mother just leaned against the wall as I dashed back to the entrance. Right as I got there, an older man was getting out of a motor cart, and I was relieved. I asked how the charge was on it, and he said he'd only been on it for a little bit, and it was still pretty full. When he got off and left, I hopped on, and I started to drive it to where my mom was. Right as I was about to pass the entrance bay area, so I hadn't gotten far, I heard a voice, and in comes the Karen. Now, I'm not bashing, but this woman was severely overweight. And I'm not a small guy either. I'm a bit on the chubby side, but I wouldn't say I was fat. Karen says, "Oh, thank God. An employee bringing a motor cart back. I don't think I can walk today." Now, please note that I'm leaving the cart area, and I'm wearing a shirt that's the exact opposite of the store's color. I looked back with a raised eyebrow, and then she snaps her fingers and points at the ground in front of her. Karen says to me, "Be a dear and bring it right here to me." I say to her, "Ma'am, I don't work here." She then says, "Then why are you in a motor cart? These are for disabled people." The woman glares at me as she folds her arms in front of her, and I roll my eyes at her and give her the stink eye. I say to her, "First off, you don't know whether I have a disability or not. And second, I'm getting this for my disabled mother." It's at that Karen says, "F your mother. I need it. Look at me. I'm fat." I say to her, "Being fat isn't a disability." With that, I motored away as she stomped her foot like a toddler and she was cussing me out. I ignored her at this point and brought the cart to my mom. I didn't tell her about the Karen as I didn't want to think about it. As we shopped though, I noticed that Karen was apparently stalking us through the aisles. No motor cart, but I would occasionally see her peeking around a corner glaring at me. When we left, I made sure an older lady got the cart. There was no arrest, no assault, but we were stalked through the store by a Karen, and I felt like a penguin being followed by an orca. Well, guys, it's obviously safe to say that she didn't need the cart as much as she said she did, considering she was following OP on foot throughout the store. And for what reason? Like, just go on with your life, Karen. Someone needed that motor cart that you wanted. Like, what's the use following them and glaring at them? Like, what's it gonna get you? Absolutely nothing in this case. A couple of weeks back, I had an argument with my boyfriend, and I decided to go for a walk. I ended up at the nearby store. The employees there wear blue, and just for some context, I was wearing a Deadpool shirt and jeans. I was in the games aisle when I heard fingers snapping behind me. Now this did annoy me, partly because I was still annoyed about my previous argument, but also because of how rude she was. I of course ignored it, and soon enough, I had a hand clench my arm and jerk me around. And there she was, Karen, the devourer of joy. She said to me, "I've been trying to talk to you ever since I saw you. Are you going to help me, or am I going to have to get a manager?" I just stared blankly at her and say, "Honestly, if you can't find a member of normal staff, I doubt you can find a manager." Karen then scoffs at me and says, "What are you talking about? I have found one. You. Now you need to help me or you're getting..." I then interrupt her and say, "I don't work here." Karen says, "Yes, you do. I see you here all the time." I then laughed and said to her in the most condescending voice possible, "Well, maybe because it's the closest store to my house and because I like shopping here. If you actually used your brain, you would realize that, wouldn't you?" That's when I turn around and she began screeching and said, "That's it. You're coming with me right now." She then grabbed my wrist and yanked, and I was in a bad mood, and the pain caused me to flip. and that's when I punched her in the gut with the hand she had grabbed. That caused her to let go, and she screamed, "I want this piece of crap fired. She just assaulted me for no reason." A staff member heard the commotion and ran over. The staff member then asked me why I did that, and I explained my side of the story, showing the marks on my arm. He then told the woman to leave or he would call security, and the Karen just screeched about managers and left. I do regret assaulting her, but honestly, she deserved it. Yeah, I think I'd consider that self-defense, not OP just assaulting her out of nowhere. And hopefully, Karen will think twice about grabbing someone next time. Nothing like a swift punch in the gut to make you realize that you effed up, right? And since we're on the topic of people teaching Karens a lesson, guys, here's another satisfying post. So as a preface, this is kind of funny. And I might have shared it before, but I figured I'd share it again anyway. Another thing you need to know is I have some severe anxiety issues, but this story happened maybe 6 or 7 years ago, before I developed the problem, so I was a bit more brazen back then. Anyways, I was shopping at the Big Blue store, famous for their selection of Karens, when I passed by a sweet little old lady. The lady asked me to grab her a case of soda off the shelf and load it into her cart for her. A thing about me is I live life by the golden rule you're taught as a child. Treat those how you want to be treated. So I get the soda for the sweet lady, and I asked her if she needed any more help. She declined and thanked me, so I start to walk away to grab the other things on my list. As I was walking down the aisle looking at my list, trying to decide where I should head next, I hear 2 words shouted at presumably me. I hear the words, "You, boy." I look up and see this abomination of a Karen sneering at me. The woman had the classic haircut. She was also overweight and was wearing tight leopard print leggings and a shirt worn by someone who was most likely 3 sizes too big for it. The woman had only said 2 words to me, and I already didn't like her. Now, remember how I said that I live by the golden rule? Well, that works both ways, and since she was rude out of the gate, that must mean that she wants to be treated rudely also. I just wasn't exactly sure how to be rude to her yet. The woman says to me, "Get that soda off the shelf for me right now. I'm in a hurry." The woman said that to me while her volume was turned up to 11. So I said, as a smartass, "I don't work here. If you want me to help you, I'm gonna need to hear a please first." The woman then shrieked, "Obviously you work here. I just saw you help that other bitch." And I'm thinking, wow, just wow. Now she insulted that sweet old lady after being rude to me. That's when I decided what I would do, based entirely off of what would be the funniest thing to do. I say to her, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Which soda did you want again?" The woman pointed aggressively at a case of Fresca on the shelf. So with that, I grabbed the case off the shelf and went to hand it to her. And the woman mutters, "Finally." But right before she grabbed it from me, I quickly put it back on the shelf, and without looking at her, I just slowly turned and walked away to do the rest of my shopping. The woman did shriek a bit about finding my manager and getting me fired, but I was just giggling to myself. I ended up taking my sweet time shopping, hoping that she would show up with the manager so she'd embarrass herself more. But I never saw her again. I wonder how her family reacted to hearing the story of the rude idiot Walmart employee she encountered that day. And here I was hoping that OP would have taken the case of Fresco with them. Or even better, loaded up all the cases on that shelf into Karen's cart and then just walked off. Now that would have been something. So my father and I have a large garden at the front and back of the property. We have fruit trees and bushes like figs and blackberries and tons of flowering plants that are gorgeous all year round. There are roses galore, and I'm obviously very proud of my garden. So yesterday, I was watering the garden at the front of the house because it was such a hot day. I was about to leave for a party, so I'm wearing makeup, wearing heels, and a pretty dress. I do not look like I work as a gardener. I also live in an area where money flows like the Niagara Falls. And to be honest, we're probably the poorest people in the neighborhood, having bought our place before the properties went from $600,000 to $4 million, which was crazy. So there I am, happily watering my beautiful plants, when a lady in a very fancy car stops dead in front of my property. I see her looking at me intensely, her husband and kids as well. The woman then shouts at me, "Hey, you, come here." The woman's waving at me towards her. Now, even though she had her young kids in the back, I'm not about to approach her car. Stranger danger, folks. So I shake my head at her and yell out asking what she wanted. The woman says to me, "How much do you cost?" At that, I was absolutely dumbfounded. In my mind, the lady was propositioning me in front of her own children, which is both hilarious and horrifying. I yell out to her, I'm not for sale." The Karen then replies, "Not you, you idiot. How much for your gardening services?" That's when my mind goes blank. I can't understand what she's asking me, and I'm pissed that she called me an idiot. I then look down at my outfit and then at her and say, "I'm wearing a dress, you idiot. Do I look like I work as a gardener?" At that, the woman seems super pissed, and then she exits her car, going straight for me. And I'm taken aback at her aggressive stance and facial expression. The woman comes up to me and says, "Don't you dare talk to me like that." I say to her, "Don't you dare talk to me like that." The lady is still yelling, "How could I know that you don't work here?" I reply, "I'm wearing a dress and heels." She then says, "You could be a fancy service. I don't know. I don't want a grubby gardener." First of all, fancy gardener services have probably never existed in the entire history of the world. And secondly, working in a garden is bound to make you dirty. The yelling at this point attracted the stares of some of my neighbors who have known me for years, and obviously I was not a gardener to them. The yelling also attracted the attention of my dad, who came out of the house with the look of evil on his face. My dad is very tall and he's very muscled. The guy's almost 70, so he can't see anything, making him squint all the time, as if he's sizing you up for a fight. Think Clint Eastwood from Gran Torino. The lady takes one look at my dad and she visibly shrinks back. My dad comes up to her, his face very close to hers, and he says, "Piss off." The lady looks back at her husband in the car, and he looks like he's about to crap his pants. No support from that end. So the woman scuttles back to her car. She slams the door and she peels away. I give her a glorious middle finger, and even my father, who's a man of manners, joins me. I seriously never thought that I'd have an I Don't Work Here Lady story to tell, but there we go. There's a first for everything. Guys, is it just me, or are Karens just reaching at this point? Like, I'm pretty sure it's gotten to the point where anyone and everyone should just serve Karens. And seriously guys, I found it freaking hilarious how she thought there were fancy gardeners. I don't want a grubby gardener, I want my gardeners to be in dresses and heels. Like, wow, how much money does that woman have, guys, to demand such a thing? Well, last Friday was an interesting one. I met one of those people of Walmart that you see in memes. The woman was a middle-aged, white lady on the chubby side, and she was wearing a full-on onesie that may have been 2 sizes too small for her. I'm wearing a blue Under Armour hoodie with a black Columbia jacket over top that has the words Shock Trauma Center on the back, along with a small decal of the hospital I work at on the front. I'm also wearing blue track pants, so I don't really think I look like an employee, other than the blue color. Anyways, I was browsing the sales when this lady with the onesie comes up and she taps my shoulder, making a rather shrill ahem sound. So I step to the side with the little amount I can because there were people to my left and right, thinking she just wanted to check out some stuff. No. The Karen says to me, "Don't you just move to the side? Turn around and look at me when I'm talking to you." I say to her, "Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you say anything." She then says, "Whatever, where can I find the shoe rack?" I reply, "Probably somewhere in the home section." She then says, "Probably or definitely, I don't have time to go walking around." That's when I say, "I don't know. It would make sense to be in there with the other storage items, right?" Karen says, "Well, if you don't know, go find out. I've been looking and I can't find it." I reply, "Why don't you ask him? I'm trying to find my own stuff and I'm sure he can help you out better than I can." Karen says, "Well, I asked you, so you need to do it for me. I don't care if you don't know. If you don't know, you should go find out instead of pushing it off to someone else. You need to work for your money." I say to her, "I don't work here. I'm just shopping like you are." She then says, "Don't you freaking lie to me, kid. I saw you putting stuff back into that box." Her voice starts getting louder and ear-piercingly high-pitched at this point. She says, "I can make you lose your job with one simple complaint, so you'd better be careful what you say to me. If your next words don't have to do with finding my shoe rack, I'm gonna go to your manager." At that I say, "You're right, I apologize. Wait here and I'll see if I can find your shoe rack for you." And at that I walk away to go look at stuff in another section while Karen just stands there. And I'm thinking I won't run into her again, but boy was I wrong. I met her again close to 20 minutes later in the women's clothing section. I'm looking for a long dress-like shirt thing for my wife. Karen marches up to me and says, "Where the F is my shoe rack? Did you keep me waiting on purpose?" I don't make eye contact and I just ignore her while trying to casually walk away because people be crazy. When she actually comes up to me and grabs my shoulder, forcefully turning me around and putting her face closer to mine saying, "Don't you effing walk away from me while I'm talking to you. Take me to your manager right now." Now, I'm usually a calm person and I do my best to be nice to everyone, but I have an a-hole side to me if you do cross a line. And boy did she cross that line when she put her hand on me forcefully. I'm not a big person, but apparently I can look threatening when I'm angry. I say to her, "Listen here, perhaps if you didn't exchange all of your IQ points for weight, you'd understand the first time when I said that I don't effing work here. Secondly, even if I did, you have no right to ever put your hand on anyone who works in a store the way you do. Putting your hand on me like that is assault, and I can have you charged for it. Third, instead of wasting all your time trying to find me for whatever reason, you can try to act like an independent human being and look for it yourself. If you've been standing here for so long and still can't find one item and asking one person isn't enough, try asking another person. Preferably one who actually works here. Now piss off and leave me alone." With all the yelling, an actual employee as well as a cop came over to see what's going on. Karen interrupts before I can say anything, and she says, "I want this kid fired. I politely asked him where something was, and he goes off yelling and cursing at me, telling me to piss off and find it myself. What kind of customer service is this?" I just talk to the cop at this point and say, "There's a camera right above us. You will find if you look at it that I was just looking at clothes when she grabs me, and she proceeds to yell in my face. If you follow me back about 20 to 30 minutes, you'll notice that she talked to me before, to where I informed her on multiple occasions that I don't work here. Karen says, "He's lying. Fire him right now, or I'll be taking my money elsewhere." I say to her, "Right, because without your money, Walmart will go out of business." Karen says, "See? Are you gonna let an employee talk to a customer like that, officer?" At this point, the employee tries to explain that I don't work here and offers to help her find what she needs, but she's either too dense to understand or was in too deep to make it out without embarrassing herself. So she goes all in, demanding my boss's boss. And I'm just standing there like, can I go now? It gets much less interesting at this point. The woman keeps yelling, the manager comes, listens, and then the cop escorts her out. The manager apologizes and offers to give me a free food or drink, but I pass and go buy this cute dress shirt of a beaver holding a mug of coffee with the words "damn tired" on it. Oh, OP almost got away with the "I'll be right back, ma'am, with your shoe rack," but he stayed a bit too long, guys, and this person says, "I can have you fired with one complaint." As someone who works at Walmart, it takes like 5+ complaints to get fired, and they gotta be real bad complaints for 5. Which only makes sense, guys. Like, I can only imagine how many people complain about the dumbest things to managers in Walmart. Thank goodness Karens have no power with one complaint. So I work at a liquor land, where employees wear a red uniform, and we have a Kohl's in the same center, where employees wear a gray or black uniform. So after a really long shift of agitated alcoholics and entitled bitches, I was ready to go home and get to bed. But before I could do that, I had to go and grab some chicken necks, mints, and treats for my little chihuahua. I've only been approached maybe 3 times by customers asking for help, but they were all very understanding and quick to leave once I pointed out that I don't work there. After 3 times, I felt the need to prepare. I had my black jacket on, hood over my head, and obvious headphone strings hanging from my ears. I was minding my own business, trying to pick out which treats to buy my baby, when I felt someone poking my shoulder. And to be honest, I thought it would have been someone I'd recognize because I thought I'd done a great job covering my uniform. So I turn around, and it's this 40-something typical Susan. Now I personally know a Karen, and she's lovely, so I'll use Susan. She says, "Help me find the salt." I say to her, "Sorry, I don't work here." Susan says, "Don't be lazy, just help me." I then pull out and point to a logo from my jacket. Susan says, "So you work for Kohl's anyways, help me." I say to her, like I said, I don't work here. I work at the liquor land on the other side of the center, so please let me do my shopping in peace. I then put my headphones in and start to walk off, since there was nothing I could say to make this lady listen to the words I said. And that's when this woman pulls my effing headphones out of my ears and she starts to scream at me how rude I am. Mind you, I just spent 8 hours dealing with a lot of people like her, except I had to help them because I worked there. I wasn't getting paid to walk around Kohl's and look for salt. I just wanted to go home and feed my baby. So I whip my head around and say, "F off, you crazy lady." I turn around and she had the effing audacity to grab me by the shoulder and try to drag me. The woman thought it would be easy to drag me, but I know how to get out of a grip if needed. So I did, and I stormed off while in complete shock at how people think it's okay to treat other people like this. There were a lot of words being yelled, but I just turned my headphones up while looking for the right uniform. To my luck, the store manager comes around the corner. I suppose he heard all the commotion. I pull my headphones out and say, "Please, help me get away from this lady." That's when Susan storms up to us and proceeds to scream/spit in the manager's face about how I should be fired. The manager says, "She doesn't work here. Now leave your stuff and get out of my store. You physically assaulted one of my customers and we have it on camera." Now, have you ever seen the cartoon Roadrunner? That was this woman, after a few seconds of complete horror on her face of not getting her way. Thank you to the security guard who offered to walk me to my car. Now, this Karen definitely needed that gut punch that OP dealt out a few stories ago. That or the cops needed to be called, guys. Like, you're not allowed to get that physical with someone, like to that extent, and then get to run away after realizing you're caught on camera. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I hope you didn't shake your heads too hard. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's on our /entitled People episode, where a Karen decides that it's a great idea to vandalize OP's house because of its decorations, and she faces jail time. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.